All right, guys, I saw this video, and this stuff has been on my mind a lot lately, so let's watch it. We can get it to play.
More than half of Americans with an income of $100,000 a year or higher say they're living paycheck to paycheck. This may be the result of a sneaky behavioral phenomenon.
It's insane. So I'm doing this video and I'm making this because this is a behavior pattern that I've seen not only in myself, but in the people around me a lot lately. And this is the thing that I think is really interesting about the American economy currently, is that if you take my income and you add up only my bills, none of my debts, only my bills, you will see that I make plenty of money in order to make it every single month. You know, that's like a non-starter. Budget-wise, if you write it all out and you look at all of my spending that I do just to survive, that is a non-starter. And the fact that there is people making $100,000 a year and they can't survive on that money, I know that places are really, really expensive, but it really does come down to being as simple. And this is okay. I might even say trigger warning here as somebody who would never normally say those things, but I'm going to talk about finances, and I'm going to talk about it in a way that I believe is the only way that's helpful. And it might upset some of you because I've seen this behavior in other people who have asked me questions about this kind of stuff before. And when we have conversations, they get upset because it triggers their belief and thoughts about it. But if you're making $100K a year and you can't afford to live, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, somewhere along the road, you have accumulated more expenses than what you can afford. And I'm guessing that a lot of those expenses are not necessary, that you have car payments, that you have a mortgage payment, that you have credit cards, that you have lots and lots of debt that is now taking away all of your money to the point that you're just barely making minimum payments. It's accruing so much interest that now you can't afford to pay off those debts because the amount you're going to have to pay for it is so much more, and it's created this problem for you.
Phenomenon called lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep is the common pattern of making a little more money and starting to spend a little bit more money. It happens almost automatically.
I think people hold
It's not that you make a little bit more money and then you start spending a little bit more money. It's that you make a little bit more money and then you spend a lot more money. I think that there is this weird pattern especially in Americans, where if you make $1,000, you want to figure out how to spend $4,000. You want to buy a PS5 in payments of 4 because you can only afford the first payment right now, but that by nature means that you literally can't afford it. I mean, I think so much that if you can't get approved for a mortgage for your house or whatever, getting a co-signer to allow you to get that mortgage is such a dangerous thing because the bank thinks that you can't pay for it. I'm not saying that this is right, that all of this is like this, that people have a hard time being able to afford the luxuries of life, but it is the way that it is. And I think that living in this world, you have to play by the rules if you want to succeed, because if you sit around and just yell about other people's shortcomings and the way that they should change and the way the world should change, you're just not going to get anywhere. And that's fine if what you want is to be a martyr, but if what you want is to be successful, which is what most people want, and they think that it might be easier to change the game than it is to burden themselves with the responsibility of doing the extra in order to get what they need. And when I say extra, I mean like, dude, it could be like 80 hours a week of work for years. It could be 80 hours of week of work, or 80 hours of work a week while going to school or mentoring or something like this that helps you get to where you want to go. And it's a lot of work. It's not for the faint of heart, but life is about putting yourself into challenge in order to put yourself down a journey that is worth having, you know?
benchmarks in their mind. If I reach this position or I get this promotion or I make it to this age, then I can live this life, or then I deserve to have these things. And then they kind of go a little crazy or go a little wild on it. And then it becomes like a trade-off. Like they only can enjoy
I am a firm believer in letting go of all of the little things that are important to you. If your toys are cars, you have got to let go of the idea that you need nice cars. You have got to let go of the idea that you need a really expensive gaming PC. You have got to let go of the idea that you need a really expensive keyboard to go with your computer. You have to learn to be okay with the idea that you need to figure out what the work is and do the work. You imagine in your head, and I'm speaking to myself as well in this, you imagine in your head that Getting the thing will make you live the life, but it's the opposite. Living the life necessitates that you get the thing eventually, and the things will come to you if you just live the life first. I can't tell you how many people I've seen buy really expensive computers because they want to stream and they've never streamed before in their life. The first computer I streamed on was a $200 refurb from eBay that I bought during the pandemic. Actually, that's not even true. The first computer that I streamed on was a cruddy iMac that I had bought for secondhand. It's such a bizarre thing that you don't even know if you actually want to do the thing yet, and you're investing a whole bunch of money in it to buy assets that are going to depreciate as soon as you buy them.
Their present happiness, and they're not able to save or plan for the future.
But it's because of the world that we live in and the social media, right? There is an amount of victimhood to it as well, and we can talk all day about the false victimhood that's been going on in the world, but there is an amount of victimhood just in existence currently. We are being taken advantage of by companies in order to push their agenda of selling more things to us. Their profits go up, the American debt goes up as well. That's how this stuff works.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with wanting nice things. The mental, emotional reason why we want to acquire more is generally rooted in this need for
acceptance,
your perceived value.
Yeah,
we live in
to show off, to have people who don't even know who you are like you.
World where like the nicer car you drive, the higher your perceived value is.
6 out of every 10 people surveyed said that paying for everyday expenses negatively impacted their mental health.
It does take a lot of joy from just life and always being.
It's bizarre because living your life is the thing that you're actually paying for. Your rent every single month, your groceries. That's what your life is. Your life isn't the iPad that you really want. Your life isn't the new computer. Your life isn't the new guitar or whatever. Your life is the quality and standard of which you live in day to day, which is your rent, your food, and your job, honestly. How much do you enjoy what you do day to day? How much do you enjoy being in your house that you pay for, your apartment that you pay for? Those are the things that I think matter the most, and yet people just make it so much harder on themselves because we're being just completely hijacked. I have this theory that I'm working on currently where I sort of think that we're living in a time where we're living on the deeds of people who actually knew what they were doing, but nobody nowadays knows what they're doing anymore. We're living on the remains of a world that was built for us, and we have no idea how to manage it.
This scarcity mindset when there isn't necessarily a scarcity to fear.
Here's why Americans...
A good way to get out of a scarcity mindset is to give money away. To give money to a homeless person or donate to charity, even if you feel like you don't have it. That makes you feel like, oh, I can just make more money.
feel like they're constantly struggling to keep their paycheck, even when they start making more money.
Say you get a new job and you have a little bit of a pay bump. Suddenly there's a little more room in your budget. Maybe you do some small upgrades, like you eat out rather than cook at home, or buy those Taylor Swift tickets, or upgrade your music subscriptions. Anything like that is an example of lifestyle creep.
I have a belief about finances currently that you can't afford to do any of those things until you have an extremely large amount of money in savings and until you have most, if not all, of your debt paid off. That you think you've made more money, but all you've done is gotten closer to paying off your debts and getting money saved up. And that's it. Only once you get those things taken care of can you actually budget for having these extravagances in your life. And I know that sounds terrible, but just imagine all of the stress that you wouldn't have to deal with if you didn't have a credit card payment multiple times a month, if you didn't have a $600 car payment and $200 of insurance and all of your student loan payments and your affirms and your zips and all of those things. Imagine if you didn't have those things. Currently, the reason that I am working so many damn hours is because I just want to be free, and I will sacrifice the next 2 or 3 years of my life in order to become free. I will work 60, 70, 80 hours a week for the next 2 or 3 years if it means that I then have the actual freedom of being like, wow, the only thing I need to pay this month is my expenses that I'm creating this month by being alive.
It's just these little upgrades that are very hard to undo financially or even psychologically once you've made them.
A lot of people have this scarcity mindset around money, and they spend so much of their lives saving. And so there can be this point where if you're constantly saving your whole life and then you finally reach this marker of financial success, or you finally reach this big paycheck number, you feel like you finally deserve to enjoy your life.
The idea that people save and they just hit a point where they feel like they deserve it, I fully disagree with that. Most people don't have $1,000 in the bank. Most people cannot handle a tire blowout, or they're going to put it on credit. There is no financial literacy, no financial education that happens.
Financial literacy is such a big thing too. The understanding of how money is working in your pocket, the understanding that when you spend money on a credit card, you are effectively spending 25% more than if you just bought it with cash. The idea that there are people out there who have the money in their bank account to spend on this thing, but they put it on a credit card instead because in their brain it feels like they have more money, is one of the things that's destroying the American way of life. And I know that we're undergoing extreme inflation right now, and that's compounding this effect. But in my opinion, that's what makes all of this more important. There is no way to survive right now unless you get things under control. And all that will happen by you getting it under control now is that the next time things get really bad in this country, you'll be significantly more set up for it.
Happens. The average person does
People
not think
have
about
this concept in their brain that when there's a recession, that everything falls apart, that you're going to lose everything you have. But you only lose everything you have if you've done things terribly. I'm not pointing fingers at people. I can point a big finger at myself. I think that over the past 4 to 5 years of my life, the way that I've handled my own personal finances has been just eyes shut and crossing my fingers, dude. That's all I've been doing out here, not paying any attention to what's actually going on. And because of that, I'm feeling the pinch of the economy currently. And I have this weird tendency to point the finger outwards, probably because I came from Democrat youth is the way that I would describe it. I was a punk kid who was, fighting the power or whatever. And that behavior made me put a lot of responsibility on the world around me instead of responsibility on myself. And I had to do a lot of growing up when all of these things started hitting the fan, and I had to dig myself out of the hole. I had to get out of that thing and fill it back in. And the fact that there are people out there who have no idea about this stuff because we are not being taught it is just a disservice to the American people, to our country. We live in a place where we're this big melting pot, and we're not raised in the way that they are in other countries. You guys ever see those people in like Portland or something who are all, trying to work in co-ops and ride their bikes around, and it's like this bastardization of like Sweden or something, or Iceland, or someplace where they actually have this culture of helping each other. America doesn't do that for some reason. We don't have this belief that we should all be working together to make the country better so that people, families can have children, so that people can work jobs and pay and put food on their table. We don't have that belief here. We have this weird every man for themselves, you have to figure it out without us telling you how to do it kind of belief. And that's just nonsense. It's a trap. It's a trap probably by the corporations in order to get us to slowly kill ourselves by indenturing us to them through massive amounts of debt so that we have to settle for jobs that we don't even enjoy. If you don't have a bunch of debt pushing down on you, if your expenses are $3,000 a month instead of $7,000 a month, you can do something completely different than what you can if your expenses are $7,000 a month. I remember when I first started going to college, and I was getting a year and a half, 2 years in, and I was looking at what the pathway outside of college was. What do I do when I graduate with a software engineering degree? Internships are a big one. Well, internships don't pay very well, very low. They're usually in very expensive cities. So how am I going to make that work if already I need to make $70,000, $80,000 a year in order to survive? I'm not going to be able to make that $70,000 or $80,000. Well, it's simple. I have to get to a point that I no longer have to make $70,000 or $80,000 a year in order to survive. And I know that sounds crazy, but people are doing it, and not just uber rich, born to wealth people. There are people who were born into nothing that do make it out. It is a real thing.
Lifestyle inflation at all. I think it's something that's not even on the average person's radar.
Coming out of the pandemic, there was this strong desire to go out and splurge on experiences.
And listen, I'm not trying to shill for big companies here. I think that there is a lot of mismanagement of wealth in this country in general. And I think that, I like the idea of living in a country where taxes are 50, 60% of your take, maybe not 50, 60%, 40% of your take home pay, much higher tax brackets, much higher rates of taxes in order to help provide for the people who struggle so that people have to struggle less. I think that building up the floor is way more important than building up the ceiling in an economy. I just believe that wholeheartedly. So I'm not trying to shill for big companies, but I do want to be successful, and I don't think it's beneficial to me whatsoever to adopt a mindset of it's everyone else's problem that I'm dealing with something.
Is maybe take a trip. This is often referred to as revenge spending or revenge travel. Research shows that young adults are particularly susceptible to this. They feel discouraged by higher prices and, making ends meet. So they might feel like they'll never have enough money to retire anyway. They might as well enjoy themselves now. Unlike perhaps their parents were, young adults need to be more responsible for their retirement because a lot of the safety nets that maybe their parents had, like a pension, no longer exist or are extremely rare. So they need to contribute to their own 401k if they want to shore up their financial security.
There's something about spending a little more than we should that can feel like rebellious or bad. And it often can be a reaction to our family culture around money or parentified or internalized rules around what we can give ourselves. And some people might overspend as like revenge against these rules, and some might look at someone who's over.
And it is an interesting thing that we are told from a young age what we should do, that we are made to feel like there is only one pathway to our own success. And we know that that's not true. So we have this mindset that we adopt of, well, I'll show them. I'll do it my way and I'll get to where I want to get to. And maybe that's worked out for you guys. And if it has, absolutely killer. Keep going, do your things. But for me, I definitely had to go back and restructure my mindset of, why am I not getting what I want out of life? What am I doing wrong? Can I get this together? Is it something that I can fix in myself? And yeah, it means putting in a little bit more effort, but I'm a fucking nerd, dude. I love to learn about things. And my most recent hyperfixation has been on finance, and it's really opened my eyes to so many things. I mean this as someone who maybe 6 months ago would have told you that everything is bleak and you can't make it out and there's no reason to even try. But I don't believe that anymore. I really don't. I think that you guys can do it. I think that anyone can do it. I don't think it's super difficult. I just think that it's having a hard conversation with yourself and the other people in your life who are your partners in all of this, that, oh, we're doing this wrong and we need to learn. We need to learn a lot about something that we don't know anything about.
For spending and think and kind of label them as all bad or all good. And there can be a lot of guilt and anxiety around the consequences. Spending is a way for us to meet one need when another isn't met.
I was 19 years old when I entered my first corporate job. I was still figuring out how to adult as well as how to be in this, corporate world, making income, which for sure.
Dude, don't even get me started on the idea that we are pushed out into the world at 18 with no idea of what is actually waiting for us. The desire to stay children forever is happening so aggressively around us. Look at the desire to sit around and do nothing but play video games and not rise to the challenges of adulthood. Look at the people who want to not work a job anymore. And listen, dude, if you have some plan for something you actually want to do with your life, if you want to travel, if you want to get out there and hike the Appalachian Trail, if you just want to spend more time with your friends, that's totally fine. But this fear of hard work, And it doesn't have to be for a business, but you should always do hard work for yourself at the very least. I really feel that way, that you are missing out on this extreme actualization of yourself if you don't put in hard work to the things that you personally want to put hard work into. If you have never felt what it's like to do something for 16 hours straight, multiple days in a row, because you really want to do it to the best of your abilities, you are missing out on the understanding that you are capable of doing that thing. And that is such a powerful source inside of you. It changes you at a core level. It brings you into true adulthood. I think this is one thing that having children is actually really, really good for, is that you don't get to check out of being a parent. You have to continue to do that thing over and over and over and over again, and the longer you do it, the harder it gets. And I think that that's why parenting brings people into adulthood really, really well, and so does something like the military, working a really difficult corporate job where there's a lot expected out of you, going to school for a STEM degree that makes you have to really sit down and work hard on something and not just BS your way through things. There's a lot of ways to it, but I think that it's really, really important. And I'm not saying that you're going to give up on all of your hobbies and things when you were younger, but you age out of some things and you're going to age into other things, and you shouldn't be afraid of that.
Sure led to overspending. I was sad, so I would shop. I was getting serotonin through shopping. Then that led to me accumulating over $30,000 of credit card debt. And I had to figure out how the heck I was going to pay that off.
Yeah.
When your spending is dictated by emotions or depriving yourself.
You only see that minimum monthly payment whenever you do something. That minimum monthly payment of $130 into perpetuity, dude. I mean, if you have $30,000 of credit card debt, you are never going to pay that off just making minimum payments. You're not. You're going to have to bust your butt, and you're going to have to make giant payments on that every single month, $2,000-$3,000 a month. And that's just the way that it is. It's brutal to think about that. But unless you want to have to pay that minimum credit card payment for the rest of your life, you have to pay off that whole debt as quickly as possible. That you have to put effort and time and thought into getting rid of that debt. Otherwise, you have just built a life tax into yourself to own a thing that is going to go away over time. Your PS5 is going to degrade and become less important as time goes on. The car you bought is going to become less important as time goes on, and it'll break down and you'll have to get another one. These things are going to happen, and when you go into debt for them, you are creating this weird thing to where now you're not only reliant on that thing not breaking down, especially if you need it like a vehicle, you now have to keep up with the payments on it while also keeping up with all of the necessities for it, all the maintenance, all the care. If you have a PS5, then all of a sudden now you have to pay for PlayStation Plus every single month. You have to buy the games as they come out to keep up there with your friends. You have to actually have time devoted to playing those games. It's very bizarre the way that we put ourselves in these situations, and we don't even think about it. It doesn't feel like we're doing that at the time.
Or holding back your needs, that's when it becomes problematic.
I generally like to think of lifestyle inflation in sort of two buckets. You have like your general idea of what lifestyle inflation is, which is the buying fancy cars, the buying nice things along those lines. And then there is lifestyle creep that's more like regular everyday things that if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're going without, like going to the dentist, getting oil changes on your car, right? There was a time in my life when oil change was just like not even a priority. Like I'm trying to keep tires on my car. I'm trying to keep it running. I'm trying to keep the registration paid. I'm not concerned about an oil change, right?
More than 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck as of September 2023. That, along with inflation, can have serious financial consequences. Many Americans also don't have emergency savings to fall back on. 63% of workers say they wouldn't be able to cover a $500 emergency expense.
There's a cool thing that happens whenever you start saving money. Whenever you start having that emergency expense fund, whenever you have $500 sitting around, whenever you have $1,000 sitting around, whenever you get to $2,000 sitting around, when you start to see that number going up and you don't have to touch it, no matter how bad things get, you don't have, you want some ground beef and you don't have any money in your account and you see that money sitting there, but you're like, I'm not going to touch that. It's fine. I'm just going to go without today. This is an interesting brain thing that goes on where you go, oh, I can do this. I can live without. I can save money. I don't need to touch that. I keep adding to it and I never have to touch it. I can cover everything while keeping a percentage of my paycheck and putting it into that place. And I never touch that. That's so bizarre. I couldn't imagine having put $400 away, but now I have, and I don't miss it really. And that's like just this really incredible feeling inside of you. And knowing that if you get sick and you can't work for a week and you don't have sick days, that you're going to be totally fine. The stress that falls off of you from that is nuts.
You know, there's that saying, being poor is really expensive, because then when it is time to get basic maintenance on your car, it ends up being way more expensive than you were planning on it being, because you haven't done basic maintenance.
And that can go well beyond car trouble. 46% of Americans said they have a balance on their credit card because of an emergency expense, according to a creditcards.com survey. 10% coming from car problems, 11% to cover unexpected medical bills, and 10% for home repairs.
Because of inflation and higher prices nearly across the board, people have been having a harder time making ends meet, and often that means turning to credit cards to fill in the gap between what you need to buy and what you can actually afford. Credit card rates are over 20%. That's the highest interest that you'll likely find anywhere unless you're getting a payday loan. Credit card debt can really spiral out of control, and pretty quickly.
The solution to get what you need when you're in a position when you don't have it, it really is to just make more money.
Yeah.
It sounds like a simple solution, but it also sounds like a condescending one, right? You tell
it is. It's so counterintuitive to just be like, just work more. But that is the answer. It's so unfortunate. I know there's all this rhetoric about living your life and doing the things that you want to do and being true to yourself and experiencing life before it gets away from you and all of those things. But if you take on responsibilities in life, it is your responsibility to meet them. You have to do what it takes. If you take out a car loan, you have to pay back that car loan. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to miss this payment and maybe I'll get it next time. You have to figure out what it's going to take for you to do that. And if that means working extra hours, then you have to work those extra hours. And man, I'm really struggling with saying what I want to right now, because I don't want to offend people, because I know how hard it is to dance around this with people. I know that people get really upset by it, but damn it, I have been dealing with this myself, and I have been having to do it myself. And if you just think that you think you're better than me and you don't need to get out there and take care of the things that you need to take care of, like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. You have to do it. No one's going to do it for you. It's going to get worse unless you do it yourself. It's all there is to it. You will become the kind of person who can handle these situations, man. It just is what it is. There is nothing else for it to be. You want it to be one way, and it's the other.
Somebody who is doing the best that they can, that they need to make more money. The solution to make more money isn't really realistic.
The experts that I talked to said it's okay to treat yourself as long as you've built in a buffer in case something comes up. You want to be able to find that balance between enjoying your life and your emotional well-being and your...
You should enjoy nice things in your lifetime. You should feel good. You should like what you have. But if you are struggling, if you are absolutely financially destitute, if you haven't figured all this out, this is not the time to indulge in those things. Put off the gratification. Wait until it's not going to sink your ship to do that thing. Enjoy what you have currently and enjoy the moment that you're living in right now. This moment where you're cresting over what it means to figure out how to make all of this work, when you're learning what your actual limits are, when you're getting to the point to where you're becoming that full-fledged person who has this well-rounded capability to take care of themselves. You know, you should be able to cook for yourself. You should be able to keep your house clean. You should be able to pay your bills on time. And if you're not able to do those things right now, that means there is still work to do. And when the work is done, then we can all relax and enjoy the day. And And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take breaks during it. I mean, people love to poke little holes in arguments like this, but listen to the spirit of what I'm saying, not to the nitty-gritty of it. It is important that you become capable of handling things, because whatever your support system is, one day it will be gone and it will be only you.
Financial well-being.
Marbrisa Flores describes herself as a recovering super saver.
I would describe a super saver as someone who maybe is now in a position where they do have some sort of income, some sort of stability, but it's a certain mindset that keeps you in scarcity mode and afraid to spend on things that you may need or want, and kind of affect your lifestyle in that way. My way of saving it was to hoard it.
And the tough part is that saving for the sake of saving, it's not very reinforcing, but it can kind of be addictive. And there's momentum in that.
There are goals that you need to have in place. You should not be sitting here thinking, I'm going to work 2 jobs for the rest of my life. You should be thinking, how do I get myself out of the situation that I'm in currently so that I can enact a plan that will get me to a point to where I will never have to be in this situation again? You need to have a clear-cut idea of what it is you're moving towards. You need to figure something out that you can do in this world that you want to do, and how you can make that dream a reality. It is a push to the end that you want to get to. It is not about being in starvation mode for the rest of your life. When you are on a diet, you are trying to get to a specific place with your body fat and with your muscle mass. And once you get to that place, it is not beneficial to continue to lose weight. Once you are at 13% body fat, going any lower is stupid. You have already done the thing. Maintain, live your life, enjoy your achievements, do the things that you want to do. Don't sit there and just squander all the time that you have because you think that spending it all, or that eating a piece of cheesecake is a morally wrong thing to do. It's not. These are methods for our enjoyment, but there is a season for all things, and the important part of being an adult is knowing what season you're in currently.
I wouldn't advise going to that extreme. It does take a lot of joy from just life and always being in this scarcity mindset when there isn't necessarily scarcity to fear. After working with a wealth coach, I continued to save because I was still very would put me at ease in that scarcity mindset. Like, I felt at ease having my savings. I continued to save money, but in a more intentional way, with the intention being of spending it.
When you're in scarcity, you're feeling this anxiety, my first thing that I like to tell individuals is forgive yourself for what you've done in survival mode. I think I like to divide it between you.
You are not a bad person because of the situation that you're in. You are not a bad person because of the things that you've done in the past. You're not a bad person because you have debt. You're not a bad person because you got fat. You're not a bad person for any of these things. There is no, but you are a bad person. There isn't. You're just not a bad person. It's okay that you're in the situation that you're in. You're going to have to get yourself out of it, though. And you have this. You totally do. There is a multitude of ways that you're capable of getting through what you're in. And when you figure that out, when you figure out your own plan for how you're going to move forward, whether it be out of whatever situation you're in, a bad breakup that you're going through, whether it be, a car that's getting repossessed, whether it be that you're, someone in your family is sick, all of these things, when you figure out that you're going to be able to handle this and get through this, and you know what it is that you have to do that, you're golden, baby. It's going to be fine. You've already done the work that most people will just run from every single time that it comes up.
What's essential, what's, an actual bill type of expense versus a lifestyle, what's a choice that you take on to spend money. For example, a choice to go out drinking and having fun, and there's also not the choice you have to make that car payment. You also have to put gas in that car for it to go, right? So there's things that you can't avoid, and there's things that you have a choice to do, and you can adjust.
Value-based spending is what I teach, and it's where you sit down and you really evaluate, one, where am I spending my money right now, and am I being reactive or am I being proactive in that? Am I spending my money in places that really have value for me, or am I spending my money in places that I think I should be spending my money because of outside influences? And once you have an idea of where your money is going right now and looking at, am I aligned with this? Is this something that I actually value?
The goal here is to find balance. It's about finding ways to spend in the moment and also how you want to spend your money in the future. So it's about enjoying your life, but not being so focused in a future that hasn't come yet or too much.
You have to create this balance in your life because in order to be yourself, in order to be the person that you actually want to be, you need to be able to make decisions in the moment and about things that are life-changing that have nothing to do with these outside forces. If you have a bunch of debt, if you have situations that you have gotten yourself into that now necessitate you to have a certain thing go right, then you're going to be really, really stressed out. The more options you have in your current moment, the more true you can be to yourself. And that's the thing that I think people really don't understand about how to be you, is that you have to have as many options as possible in order for you to know what you actually want to do. Because when you only have one option, it doesn't matter what you want to do. You're not even going to think of what you want to do. You're going to think of what it's going to be like to do that one option. And then you can't be yourself. And that's the problem with all of this. You need to be able to be yourself. You need to be able to follow your compass and do what you believe is right in every single moment so that you can be happy and you can enjoy this 80-year period that you have on this planet.
Focus on the present. The idea is having your cake and eating it too. You can have bites of your cake right now and then save some cake for later.
And that's all it comes down to, guys. You know, I don't know. I wanted to make a video about this because it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I'm very, very hyper fixated on finances currently. It's become extremely important to me because it's something that I just put off learning about for a really long time. It was something I always told myself I wasn't interested in. I came from a place where my family always said, you know, money's the root of all evil, and you need to, you know, other things are much more important than money, and blah, 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 all that stuff. And it really made me feel very negatively about myself for having desires for things that would cost a lot of money. Anytime I saw, you know, the ability to go record with a producer who I was really interested in recording with, and I saw how much money it would cost, I'd be like, well, you know, if it costs that much, it can't be good because having a lot of money is bad and blah, 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 all these things. So I think that it's important to sort of find this balance for yourself and understand who you are as a person so that you can know what your goals are and then you can achieve those goals. And that's what I think makes people happy in life.